Good morning, committee, and welcome to any member of the public joining the 8th of July 2021 meeting of the Western and Southern Area Planning Committee, which is one of the 3 area-based planning committees of the Dorset Council. Our area of remit covers the previous Weymouth and Portland Borough Council and most of the previous West Dorset District Council areas. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Council has had to put in place measures to enable the Council's decision-making process to continue whilst keeping safe members of the public, councillors and Council staff in accordance with the government's guidelines on social distancing. As the regulations allowing decisions to be made at committee meetings from remote locations have now expired, the Council has decided that the committee will continue to meet remotely and make a minded to resolution with an officer delegated to make the formal decision. The officer will make their decision immediately after the committee has voted on each item and will give reasons if their decision differs from the minded to resolution. Therefore, this meeting is being live streamed to the public, and a copy of the recording will be available on the Council website following the meeting. Members of the public are invited to make written representations, provided they are submitted to Democratic Services by 8:30 AM no later than 2 working days before the meeting. These representations will take the form of written statements of no more than 450 words with no attachments, and will be read out at the committee meeting by our administration assistant. For the benefit of the public, my name is Councillor David Shortell, Chairman of this Area Planning Committee, and my Vice Chairman is Councillor Bill Pipe. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, everybody.
To introduce other members of the committee, Councillor Dave Bowell. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors.
Councillor Kelvin Clayton. Good morning, Kelvin.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, all.
Councillor Susan Cocking. Councillor Jean Dunseth. Good morning, Jean.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members.
Councillor Nick Ireland. Good morning, Nick.
Morning, Chairman. I'm present.
Good. Councillor Paul Kimber. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Chair. It's Paul.
Yeah, did I say Paul?
You said
sorry, do apologise. Good morning, Paul. Councillor Louis O'Leary. Good morning, Louis.
Good morning, Chairman.
Councillor Kate Weller. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Councillor Sarah Williams. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everybody.
And Councillor John Worth. For information, officers involved in the meeting include Anna Lee, Service Manager, Anne Collins, Area Manager for the Western and Southern team, Laura Altree, Solicitor, Jenny Williams, Technical Support, and Denise Hunt, Democratic Services. Good morning, everyone. We'll now take item 1 on the agenda, and that is apologies, and to confirm any apologies for absence. I understand, Anna, there are 2 apologies from Susan Cocking and John Worth. Are there any others?
No others. No other apologies, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Item 2 on the agenda is declarations of interest. Does any member have any declaration of pecuniary or conflict of interest, bias or predetermination regarding any item on the agenda?
Yes, Chair, I have a pecuniary interest in 4B and 4C, so I will take no part in the debate or vote.
Thank you, Sarah. I've already noted that.
Chairman, before you proceed, I have Councillor Nick Ireland, who has requested to speak, and also Councillor Dave Bowell.
Okay.
So this is
Councillor Ireland, I think, first.
Thank you. This is I'm doing this under declarations of interest. I don't have any, but for transparency, I am the Crossways ward member for Dorset Council, which includes the first application on the agenda. I'm also chairman of Osmonton Parish Council, who discussed this application. I took no part in the discussion, and so I'm open-minded and have not predetermined for the record.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And also, I'd like to make a statement at some point before we start the actual application on my code of conduct outcome yesterday. So.
Okay.
Councillor Bowell, Chairman.
Councillor Bowell?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to, it's not a declaration of interest as such, but agenda item 4B and 4C, the applicant is related to an elected member, Councillor Sarah Williams, who is a colleague of mine on Bridport Town Council. However, I will review this application with an open mind, and I don't declare predetermination.
Thank you.
Further along, Chairman, Councillor Calvin Clayton.
Good morning,
Yeah,
Chairman.
it's exactly the same as Dave Bowell, Chair. We all sit on Bridport Town Council, but I'm prepared to keep an open mind on this.
Thank you, Kevin. That's fine.
And finally, Councillor Louis O'Leary, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not a declaration of interest, but I made comments about a application similar to the Osmington Mills one, another waterside property in my ward. But I came to this with an open mind, and we'll be voting on it.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to go to Laura Altry to verify that all those declarations are in order to proceed.
Yes, Chairman, that's fine.
Thank you very much. I just want clarification. Does that cover all of the declarations of interest?
It does, as far as I'm concerned, Chairman, yes.
Thank you. I would like to inform the committee and members of the public that because this is an informal meeting of the committee, which can only make minded to resolutions, we are unable to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on the 10th of June 2021. This will be done at our next formal meeting. Item 3 on the agenda, public participation. The committee receives a number of written representations submitted in accordance with the amended speaking protocol effective from the 20th of July 2020. That is the first 3 public statements received an objection and the first 3 in support, including the applicant or agent, will be read out by an officer not involved in the application. This number does not include representations received from town and parish councils or by relevant Dorset councillors. The written statements have been circulated to all members of the committee prior to the meeting. We'll now take item 4 on the agenda, planning applications. We have 4 planning applications before us today for consideration. A comfort break of 5 or 10 minutes will be taken as and when is required. To avoid any perceived concerns regarding predetermination, I have decided to stand down as chairman for the first application and ask that the vice chairman to chair this item. He will be supported by Councillor Louis O'Leary. I will not be participating in the debate or will vote on any minded to resolution. I now hand over to Councillor Bill Python.
Thank you, former chairman.
Point of order. Do we not have to vote on a vice chairman to stand in, just as a sort of a?
No, because I actually am the vice chairman.
No, I mean for me. Sorry.
Yeah, you're just supporting. You're not acting as a vice chairman.
Fine. No.
You're doing the chat line, and should I fall out, you will take over.
So, Councillor Pipe, can I make my statement now before we get embroiled in the sorry, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to call you Nick. So a statement from Councillor Nick Highland for benefit of members. Thank you, and the public, of course.
Let me put my video on, I suppose. If I can find that. Is that working? Yep. Okay. There we go. Sorry. This might come out a bit weird, but it's probably going to be make sense by the end. I was thinking about this when I was out running this morning, and then realised I had to do this. So I'll just read out something I've written in the last half an hour. Some of you were on this planning committee with me back in 2019 and made a decision on the demolition of an open water sewage facility situated in the Green Hill Chalet complex in Weymouth. I took no part in the meeting as I was out of the country, but instead lobbied this committee after numerous representations from both my constituents and others I knew in the swimming fraternity to reject the application for valid planning reasons. You didn't, and nearly 2 years later, the swimming club regrettably still has no premises, despite promises from this council to find and provide alternative accommodation. However, you will probably also be aware that the director, or one of the directors of said Greenhill Chalets, subsequently took out a code of conduct complaint against me, which finally reached its conclusion nearly 2 years later, yesterday, at which I was found to be in breach of said code. I disagree with the outcome, but respect the process, and have been asked yesterday to apologise to this committee. However, in my written statements to the committee, and then verbally yesterday, I stated that I had no regrets in or apologise for defending the interests of my constituents and would do the same again, and may have the chance to do so with the Portland incinerator very soon. My comments have also been reported in the press today. So if I was to apologise to you now, it would be an obvious lie. And not only that, demonstrably, and in my view, incontrovertibly, a breach of the code of conduct that I'm being asked to apologise for breaching in the first place. Specifically, in relation to item 1.2, the councillors should be truthful, which it clearly wouldn't be, and in 2.1, treating others with respect. And I certainly wouldn't be treating you with respect if I apologise to you. So, given that I'm caught in a catch-22 situation, I'll just apologise for not apologising and hope you understand why. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Agenda item 4A, planning application WDD 19.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I put up a right to speak. Could I?
beg your pardon, Paul. My young assistant's failing.
So, sorry. There's not actually. Is it about the application, Paul? Because I don't think.
No, it's on Councillor Ireland's. Just a point of clarification. When?
Well, we're not here to debate.
No, I'm not. No, I'm asking.
I'll give you one shot, Paul, and then we move on.
The application Councillor Ireland was referring to was on this council 2 years ago. That's all my question is.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm just double checking that it wasn't on the Weymouth and Portland. Thank you.
No, it's Southern and Western planning.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Item 4A, planning application WDD 19002903, Ottomington Mills Holidays, Ottomington Mills Weymouth DT3 6HB. The application being the use of land as a year-round holiday park. Bob Burden, you're going to introduce this if you'd like to.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yes, yeah, I'm seeking to share my screen now.
Thank you very much. While you're doing that, Bob, just for members' reference, I would be taking technical questions after the presentation, so put them into the chat bar for me, please. Thank you.
Right, my screen isn't coming up at the moment, Chair.
There you go. Flexi Manager. Oh,
that's not what you should be seeing.
No.
I'm just going to unshare a moment, Chairman. It's coming up for me, but it's clearly not showing for you at the moment, Chairman. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Bob, if you need me, it's Anne. I can share the presentation if you need me to in a minute. Just let me know, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne.
It worked fine at the pre-meeting, Vice Chairman, and for some reason it's not coming up now, and I'm doing exactly what I did then. Anne, do I need to close down my PowerPoint that I've taken from the committee file for you to open it?
No, I've just managed to open it. Bear with me a minute, Chair, and I will get it shared.
Apologies for this, Vice Chairman. It's
There is a comment in the chat bar, David, Chairman.
thank you, Ed.
Should you have your camera on? I'm uncertain whether you should or shouldn't. I don't know.
Right. If we can advance to the next slide, please, Anne.
There we go. You've got it.
Okay, so to locate members, the site is located off the south of the A353, the Osmington to Wool Road, and it's about 1/3 of a mile down towards the coast at Osmington Mills. And you can see the site outlined here in red. Where the marker is at the moment is at the Mills Road, which accesses a plane to the site from Mills Road, about halfway down. And the site is also flanked on the east by Upton Fort Road. You can see that trackway just on the eastern edge that runs north to south down the site as indicated. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So what I've done is I've divided the site into a north and a south section. And this is the north section, which shows an up-to-date survey of the site, and you can see the rectangular lodges all laid out adjacent to the access roads there. So you can see exactly what we have in terms of the existing site layout and numbers. Where the cursor is at the moment, there's an additional lodge that would go into that location, just to the right of that cursor. That's it. And you can see the vehicular access down below there. Now down to the south edge of this plan, you see the gymnasium building there, and then south of that the country club building, which is the restaurant, bar and reception for the complex. There's also a planning permission which has been actually commenced, I understand it, for the boutique hotel as part of the country club context, but that's commenced rather than complete, as I understand it. And looking, if we then move to the south section, yeah, so at the top end of the plan, we see again the gymnasium and country club buildings there to locate you. So the site then runs away a little bit to the right. There is the stream valley, and then beyond that we have the layout of the lodges adjacent to the access roads there. There's also public right-of-way that crosses east to west about halfway down the southern section of the site. Okay, if we then move on to the next slide, please. This is an aerial impression, an aerial photograph, not precise on current tree cover, but it gives a good general feel of the landscape context of the site. You can see the lodges quite clearly denoted by the grey patches, and then at the south part you can see the lodges there within the a wooded fringe on quite a lot of the site. But I'll show you some more photos to give you the context of the site shortly, and those photos that will be coming up shortly were taken in late January, so a useful time of year just to understand what the tree foliage or lack of foliage looks like at this time of year. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. So this is the entrance to the site, existing vehicular access entrance off Mills Road into the site. And as I mentioned, the additional lodge would go just to the left of that white van you see there in that sort of location. Onto the next slide. And here we see the gymnasium, the clubhouse buildings, just to give you an idea of the nature of those. Next slide. And this is looking from that location northward. You can see Time Cottage, the two-storey dwelling with the white walls at the far end. That's not part of the application site, but adjacent to it. And it gives you just a flavour for the nature of the lodges on the site and the sort of general layout. And you can see the presence of various trees around the fringes of the site. Those on the left are on the opposite side of Mills Road, I would point out, but there is a hedge, an evergreen hedge along the edge of the site along Mills Road, along the edge of the application site. Next slide, please. So this shows you just a more detailed indication of the general layout of the site, with some landscaping within the site and the sort of fairly well weathered timber cedar lodges, which are subject of this proposal, obviously. Next slide. It's just a view from down the southern part of the site, looking northward, giving you a bit more of a flavour of the site and some landscaping within the site. On to the next one. And this again still in the south part of the site, but looking southward, you can see across into the bay beyond. You can see how the landers rise in this part of the site up the slope, and a number of lodges there. In fact, in the foreground is the footpath, public footpath that enters the site and then crosses off to the right and through the site. That just gives you a bit of a flavour of that part of the site. And then this shot is on Upton Fort Road, the trackway, which is also a public right of way. And this is adjacent to the south section. So our site is on the left hand side beyond the tree fringe on the left of this trackway. As I said, these photos were taken in late January. This is just moving again up North Fort Road, looking across into the site to the north of it. And then carry on up with the next slide. The northern section. So our site is on the left. You can just see a bit of a lodge there peeking through, and the line of trees along the edge of the site there, which are actually subject to a group tree preservation order, which basically skirts this site and some additional land. On the right are a group of a number of about 7 or 8 dwellings that front onto Upton Fort Road, which is at the northern end of the site and obviously opposite the application site. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just north of the existing vehicular access into the site. It shows you the frontage hedgerow alongside the lane, which is an evergreen hedge, which provides quite useful soft landscaping along the lane edge there. Next slide. Okay, on the main planning issues, say a few words about this. As regards to the principle, I mean, this is an existing, well-established holiday park. It's important to recognise that. You know, it is already there. It's occupied for 10 months of the year. The desire is to occupy the units for the full 12 months of the year. And I think it's important to recognise for members that over quite some years, this council, obviously recently this council, and the former Dorset district councils have approved in rural areas various applications, quite a few applications, to extend holiday caravan occupancy seasons to cover the full months. So that this is not an unusual application, and it's consistent with the trends to facilitate winter breaks. And I've cited several examples in my report at para 16.9, but there are many other examples that could be quoted. But just to give you that background, Chairman, Vice Chairman. So also useful to just mention the appeal for one chalet that was allowed on this site for one further lodge back in 2016. On that, the inspector permitted all-round holiday use for that. He conditioned it for holiday accommodation use and the schedule of occupiers to be maintained, but it didn't place any limit whatsoever on the months of the year that could be occupied. So in the light of that information, you know, I think it would be, in my opinion, be very difficult to sustain a refusal of the application. Now, other points I think it's useful to mention with this scheme, with this additional 2 months of usage, potential economic benefits could come from that, which is potential increased use of local shops, pubs and facilities, which would help sustain these in the otherwise low usage period of the year, and potential increased employment for holiday park maintenance during that period. The effects on the Owen and Heritage Coast, well, in this case, obviously, the development is there. It is there. So, you know, it substantially exists, so the visual impact is as existing. As regards to residential amenity, clearly a further additional 2 months of use would carry with it the at the moment, obviously, because the units aren't occupied, then it would involve the comings and goings of people staying there. It would involve the traffic associated with those. Perhaps some additional servicing traffic might occur in that period. But that would be of a similar level to what is encountered at the moment in other months. But I suspect it would be at a significantly lower level generally, because it's not everybody's desire to have a break in such a chilly part of the winter as is normally the case. But certainly, similar, if that levels to existing activity. In terms of nature conservation, the proposal does require some contribution, a financial contribution towards ecological matters, and that has been assessed by the Senior Environmental Assessment Officer of the Council and has been verified with Natural England, and that payment, as I mentioned in my report, is set out in my report. So that would be dealt with. That would be dealt with by a planning obligation, and it's likely that would be addressed through a unilateral undertaking, which the applicant has indicated they would wish to provide for us on that. Highways, obviously the site has an existing vehicular access to it. The plots within the site have adequate car parking, and I have no objection to the scheme from a highways point of view, nor does the highways officer. So if you can go on to the next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide, please? Hello?
Are you there, Anne?
I am. Sorry, I'm having IT problems. Bear with me a minute.
Right.
Okay.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of my recommendation, as you can see, the recommendation is for a delegated approval, that the committee would be minded to grant the application subject to the conditions and the completion of the planning obligation I mentioned. And there's the amount of the ecological contribution, £1,911.30. So there are a number of planning conditions attached, and it's useful just for me to make a couple of comments on that. The condition 3, maximum 69 holiday caravans on the site. The existing planning permission from 1987 does not specify number of caravans, Chairman. So this is an opportunity, a very useful opportunity, to actually get that number tied down for the site. Bearing in mind that the caravan site license in the background to this could allow potentially up to 130 caravans on this site. So useful opportunity to control numbers, Chairman, this application. Also important that the caravans are specified for holiday purposes only, not as a main place of residence, and that we can also back that up with a schedule of occupiers to be maintained. Again, that's something that wasn't on the 1987 permission and is a very useful checkable means that can be maintained, that can be inspected by a council officer to ensure that the units are not being occupied for holiday purposes, in effect. So, Chairman, I think that's let's go on to the next slide. Following slide, if possible. It's my summarising slide. Thank you, Anne. Yes, so Chairman, so the recommendation is that you be minded to grant the application as set out in the recommendation and conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Bob. I now invite Jenny Williams, who reads the written statements as submitted to Democratic Services. Over to you, Jenny.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Written submissions as follows. Jill Dunning, Chairman of the Osmington Mills Protection Group. As Chairman of the Osmington Mills Protection Group, I represent numerous locals and people with an interest in the area. Everyone I have spoken to is against this proposal. The reasons include Osmington Mills is an area of AONB and should not be judged in the same context as lodges on the extremities of towns or secluded from public view. The hedgerow on the southern border of the eastern side of the park has been reduced and bases elevated to enable waterside to provide lodges with sea views. This is to the detriment of local residents and holidaymakers, as the lodges are well lit, have huge windows and are visible from the coastal path, Mills Road and beyond. Unlike Osmington Mills, there is a year-round street lighting in the park. The lodges are even more visible in the winter months with fewer leaves on trees. The visibility of the lodges seems to go against sections of the Dorset Management Plan 2014 to 19, including Objective L1, conserve and enhance the AONB and the character quality of its distinctive landscapes and associated features. L1A, conserve and enhance landscape character and quality and promote the use of landscape and seascape character assessment to shape decisions affecting the AONB. L1C, conserve and enhance the special qualities of the AONB such as tranquility and remoteness, wildness and dark skies. Objective L2, conserve and enhance the AONB by removing, avoiding and reducing intrusive and degrading features. Objective PH1, support sustainable development that conserves and enhances the special qualities of the AONB. PH1G, conserve and enhance the AONB's underdeveloped rural character, panoramic views, tranquility, remoteness and wildness. Objective PH2, impacts of development and land use damaging to the AONB's special qualities are avoided and reduced. PH2A, protect the AONB from inappropriate development and land use. PH2B, protect the quality of uninterrupted panoramic views into, within and out of the AONB. Residents on Upton Fort Road to the rear of the site have lodges looking directly into their homes. The old caravans were situated lower and had less fenestration. Residents would like at least 2 months free from intrusion. The park does little to increase year-round tourism. An internet search for holiday accommodation finds just 10 lodges for rental. The vast majority are only used by owners and family and friends. A feature in the Times in 2015 reported that just 10% rent out their lodges. Pandemic year demand should not be used as a precedent. If no season of use is imposed, it will make it difficult for the council to refuse a certificate of lawfulness for it to become residential. Osmington Mills does not have the infrastructure to sustain more homes, and its development has never been included in any local plan. Richard Burgess, Agent. The Waterside Group are the leading locally based holiday park operator. That is their business. They have run 5-star holiday parks and do not permit permanent residential use. Having dealt with them for over 30 years now, I can vouch for that fact. You will see that also that the case officer has confirmed that their contractual documents with their tenants / occupiers makes that very clear. Their main motivation in making this application is to permit their guests to use the chalets during February half term, the dates of which vary from year to year and between counties. This does not imply a high intensity of use during the winter, as might occur during the summer holidays. People want to come to Dorset for quiet enjoyment, walking, etc. during the winter months. We have already pointed out to the case officer that the single unit allowed on appeal on the site does not have any seasonal occupation limitations. In addition, there are numerous examples throughout Dorset of holiday park sites who enjoy a year-round permission. We have pointed out examples extending from Stowborough in the east at their own Bowleys Cove site, at Silver Lake and at Burton Bradstock. We are aware that there are concerns about a precedent relative to the Ringstead caravan site, which the committee recently considered. There is, however, all the difference in the world between the two sites. Ringstead is approached via a private road and then a potholed, unmade lane, is very prominent and unscreened, and is in a location where, out of season, there are no facilities whatsoever. Osmington Mills is well laid out with tarmac roads and parking spaces. Underground services is well screened, heavily landscaped and composed of high quality cedar clad units, all renewed in recent years with on-site facilities and a pub and shop cafe nearby. The number of units on site has of course been greatly reduced since it was taken over by the Waterside Group. Your officer's report accurately records this. We consider the planning officer's report is fair and accurate, other than it implies we require permission for an additional unit on the former ranch house site. We do not consider that this is the case. It is part of the original permitted caravan site. We have no objection to the conditions and ecological contributions suggested and would respectfully request your support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jenny. Bob, are there any responses you'd like to make on salient points raised by the two contributors?
Yeah, just very briefly, Vice Chair, thank you. It's just obviously in the Osmington Mills Protection Group, obviously they're talking about a number of planning issues, but it is important to remember that this application does essentially relate to existing structures which would simply be used for an extra 2 months. It's important to remember that. On the point about the certificate of lawfulness concern, I would add that the planning conditions we've chosen to recommend would provide the controls to prevent that in effect, because of the holiday use specification, limit on numbers and the schedule of occupiers. I'll say a little bit more, well, I actually said quite a bit actually in my presentation, but you know, the conditions are appropriate for this scheme and have been used quite widely elsewhere in Dorset in the past. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, I'm looking now for any technical questions. What have you got for me, Louis?
Chairman, I've got Councillor Nick Harland to start.
Thank you. Nick, fire away.
There we go. Sorry, I'm just trying. It's going to work. It's really slow this morning. Yeah, sorry, I've got 3 questions. I'd like to take each individually if possible, because they're possibly slightly complex. Mr. Burden's touched on 2 of them, but didn't actually answer them. So let me kick off with if I kick off with the first one, it's probably the easiest, I guess. So given that most established holiday parks, and despite what he said, most of the ones who haven't got year restriction don't have year restrictions are recent ones. So I'm thinking of locally down the road from me, Seaview and Weymouth Bay, which are run by Haven, I believe. They have the same restrictions that essentially Osmington Mills Holidays has, which is 10 months, no residential use. And it seems to me that these restrictions would have been put in when some permission was granted, whatever that was. And what is absent from the report, and actually in the reports, especially the Ringstead one again, which was last year we discussed, unless you actually know why those restrictions were put in the first place, it seems to me that it's difficult to argue that they should be removed when you don't know why they were there. So how can you argue that something doesn't apply anymore when you don't know why it existed in the first place? So that's my first question. So, you know, can Mr. Burden go into more detail as to why this site particularly has the 10-month, you know, restriction, why it was put there in the first place, so we can make a decision as ourselves, as members? Because I don't think without that, how can we say it doesn't apply anymore? Because we don't know why it was there in the first place. That's my first question. That's the easiest one, probably.
Okay, thank you for that. Bob, have we got anything you'd like to say on that one, or should I call in a more legal?
Yeah, no, I'll comment on that, Chairman, if you just bear with me just 1 second while I'm something. I was just looking at the 1987 permission on this site, which doesn't really help me very much because it was quite an old permission in terms of detail of reasons for conditions. But I mean, historically, it was generally accepted that the holiday season was the main extended summer season, not the winter. So there wasn't an expectation that people would want to go on winter breaks, which was part of the reason why very often it was just limited to avoid that season. It is also, in some cases, it has been used in some cases to suggest that it would be a reason to avoid it being for permanent residential use. But what wasn't done on those historical applications where that was put in as a reason for the condition to limit it to less than a year was they didn't attempt to use any other mechanisms to control the occupancy. And in this case, we would have the schedule of conditions, which is something that has sort of evolved quite some years ago in planning. I mean, it's been, I can't remember exactly how long it's been used, but probably since around about, the early 2000s, we've used the schedule of conditions, the schedule of occupiers, and that written record, which I've tweaked the condition in this case to specify as per my recommendation. I've tweaked the condition to say not just the names and home addresses of all the owners occupiers of the caravans, but also the dates of occupation. So that's an important tool that helps us exercise control, and if we needed to follow that up, we could do. But that's my response to Councillor Ireland's first point, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Thank you. I think, yeah, okay, well, I guess we can probably debate our own thoughts of why the restrictions might exist later. So my second technical question, which follows immediately on from what you've just said, actually, it's about enforcement. And I appreciate all the things you're putting in. I guess some of them already existed, but I guess my question is, so briefly going back to Weymouth Bay, I know somebody who lives there, and live is the term I would use, for 10 months of the year. They move out for the 2 months it's closed, and they move back in when it opens again. And they've done that for nearly 10 years. And as far as I'm aware, that has the same restrictions that Weymouth Bay and all the other parks around have, and Osmond Mills holidays. So what I'm probably saying is, so how many? Can you be explicit? So how do you actually enforce this? It's all very well saying the people need to keep records. So how often, for example, does Dorset Council go into Osmond Mills holidays a year and check the records? Yeah, one question. Next question is, and not only do you, when you're checking them, what extra checks do you put in? Because I'm not implying anybody is doing anything illegal at the moment, but you need to have some background checks to verify that what you're being presented, saying, these are the dates, these are the people, are actually true. So do you actually visit the sites? Do you check the records? And what extra checks do you have in place? Because if those checks that you're planning to use for Osmond Mills are the same ones used at Haven, well, clearly they don't work, because I know they don't.
Well, Vice Chairman, to respond to that, I haven't personally been over to check these. I don't know about the details of the Weymouth Bay site specifically, but the fact is, if a written verifiable record is kept, that can be checked, and that could be triggered by either simply, for example, the planning officer or the enforcement team making a date in their diary to just go and check it, or it could be triggered by an alleged complaint that the properties are not being occupied for holiday purposes only, in which case clearly we would need to investigate that and come to a conclusion. So it could be either triggered by simply reacting to an alleged complaint of non-compliance from a member of the public, for example, or it could be proactively done by the planning officer or enforcement team if so required. That's my response to that, Vice Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I assume that, Nick, is your three questions?
No, that was the second one. My third one is slightly longer, I'm afraid, but it's very important. I think it's probably the most important.
Can I just interrupt you there? Can we just keep it to the Osmington Mills site rather than making reference to other facilities in the locality, please?
Well, this one's going to have to make reference because it's Mr. Burden makes a statement, which I want to know why he makes a statement. So the front page where the recommendations are. One of the recommendations, and I'm going to quote it because I don't get wrong, it says the location is considered to be sustainable and the proposal is acceptable in its design and general visual impact. So what I would like to query is that word sustainable, because I represent Crossways Ward and there have been numerous cases in the last 2 to 3 years where sustainable is become quite a contentious subject. So there was an application, I can give you the number if you wish, but it was for erection of 3 buildings on the main road in Owen. The council refused it on the basis that it was unsustainable. Occupiers relied mainly on private cars to access main services and facilities. The report continued. It says require opportunities to reduce car use, ensure access to convenient and appropriate public services, whilst acknowledging there was a shop and bus service in Owen, but it was refused. And it went to appeal, and the planning inspector also threw it out based on the fact that there were limited services and facilities. Occupiers of the dwellings were reliant on cars for travel and day-to-day needs, no street lights, cycling along unlit roads in the dark, shortage of pavements. A couple of months later, another application again in Owen, 6 buildings supported by the parish council and everybody that I could see. It was refused. Unsustainable location, occupants would have to use cars, limited services, limited undesirable public transport. And yet there is a farm shop, there is a shop in the garage, and there is a bus service in Owen. Moving on, Warnwell 2019, 9 dwellings, reused existing buildings, refused, unsustainable, occupiers have to use cars, facilities away from the village, heavy reliance on private cars, limited services, limited public transport options. But it does have a bus service, and there are 3 convenience shops about 2 miles down the road in Crossways. And then there's one in Osmington pending, it was validated last year, and the applicants took pre-application advice and were told, no chance, you're in an unsustainable location. It's literally 200 yards away from my house in Osmington. So what I would like to know is why Mr. Burden regards Osmington Mills as sustainable when it has no shop, it has no street lighting, it has no pavements. Clearly, everybody there is going to be arriving by car, and they're going to use a car. It has no bus service or other public transport options. Cycling is on unlit 60 miles an hour road to get to the main road, and then you've got unlit main roads to get to Weymouth and anywhere else. So I don't understand why Osmington Mills, which is a dead end, is regarded as a sustainable location, yet when villages with far better access to facilities, they have shops, they have farm shops, they have bus services, are not sustainable. Or is this some about-face U-turn by Dorset Council to now mark those locations as sustainable? It doesn't make any sense to me, and so I'd like Mr. Burden's opinion on why it is sustainable.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm coming at this mainly from the point of view that this is an existing holiday park which can be occupied clearly for 10 months of the year. Now, this proposal allows effectively 69 holiday lodges for an extra 8 weeks without needing to convert buildings, put in new operational development. It provides additional holiday accommodation without there being a need to create the actual accommodation itself, because it's already there. So in that sense, you get the opportunity to provide additional holiday accommodation without there being any resource, unsustainable resource needed for the building or creation of those units. That was fundamentally where I was coming on. I do accept it's not the most perfect location in terms of access to facilities. Having said that, there is a pub just down the Smugglers Inn. I would be happy cycling in that area up to Osmington myself to visit the various facilities available there. So it does have some links with sustainability, but I accept it's not the perfectly sustainable site, but it exists. That's the point, Chairman. Thank you very much.
You're on mute, Bill.
Chairman.
I beg your pardon. Thank you, Bob. Louis, who's next, please?
Chairman, next is Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
Okay, Kelvin, all yours.
Thank you, Chair. I think my question's been partially answered, actually. It's referring to the condition that the park can only be used as holiday accommodation, not as a main place of residence. I was going to ask for the definition of that and how it's monitored. I think Bob's answered about the monitoring, but could I have a definition? How many weeks of the year would constitute holiday as opposed to full-time residential?
Ooh, that's an interesting question, Chairman, and it's one that has this has been much discussed. It's not something that I can give a neat black and white answer to, but you know, clearly it's normally a situation where you stay at a location for a period of time. You then may go away to your main place of residence. You may then return for another period of time. But in general, the approach is that it's obviously not your main place of residence, which is the specification on this condition anyway. And in general, the duration of those holiday weeks will be relatively short, although some may be longer. But I can't give you, sadly, a definitive definition on that. I'm not sure entirely there is one. I know we've sort of looked at that before as planning officers over the years, and I'm not aware that we've been able to find one that's, you know, but you have to take the view of what a reasonable person would regard as holiday accommodation, I think, really.
So just to come back very quickly, if I may, if permanent residence was prevented by only being open 10 months a year, and then that restriction is lifted and someone stayed there 11 months a year and then went away for a month, would that still be regarded as non-permanent?
That's it's a difficult one to comment on. I mean, generally the situation is people stay for not, you know, a period of time, but it's not usually of that sort of order of magnitude. But I mean, if you're saying it's referring to the figure of 11 months of the year, I mean, that clearly wouldn't be in the spirit of the condition I recommended anyway, because, you know, it says shall not be the main person's main place of residence. So that would imply a substantially shorter period of time. Therefore,
I'm just trying to get to the worst case scenario.
Yeah,
someone was being awkward. How would it be monitored?
Yeah. Well, you know, there's that check on the schedule of occupiers, etc., isn't there, which we've talked about or mentioned already. But yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be the main place of residence, full stop. So, you know, that should be interpreted as one would reasonably expect from that statement.
Okay.
Can I just jump in there for a bit? As Bob's already said, this is not an unusual application. There are sites throughout the county who enjoy 365 days a year facilities open to the general public, to holidaymakers, to casual stayers, and the rest of it. So I think that the question of monitoring who's stayed more than a fortnight or whatever limit you want to, you know, bring into that argument is it works. You know, in Purbeck, I was the portfolio holder that covered this, and it certainly worked in Purbeck. So I don't really see why it can't work in Dorset. Anyway, that's my two penneth. Who we got next, Louis?
We have Councillor Dave Bowell.
Okay, Dave, all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Ironically, it's exactly the same as Councillor Kelvin Clayton's questions, and I'm still not convinced that if we're looking to condition this and we're not really sure how to define it, then I'm not sure how you can condition it apart from saying main residence has got to be elsewhere. I do have reservations as well. I do hear what Bob's saying, but I am concerned about the sort of fluffiness or nebulous of this conditioning. If there's somebody stay there 11 months and say I've taken a very, very long holiday. Anyway, I think I'll leave it at that, but I do have an issue with it personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next, Louis?
That's it. We did have Councillor Weller, but she's withdrawn her RDS.
She's withdrawn. Okay. Okay. Before I open the debate, members, may I remind you to direct any questions or remarks through the chair, and I will invite members to speak in turn. Requests to speak need to be made via the virtual chat facility. Can I also remind members that the chat facility is for the smooth running of the meeting and must not be used for discussion on the merits of an application. Please keep microphones on mute when not speaking to preserve audio quality. Now open the debate to members. Anybody?
I haven't got anybody yet, Chairman.
Okay, let's give it a few seconds. We have
Councillor Kimber.
Yes, Paul.
Sorry, Chair, my mouse is sliding all over the place.
All right. There you go.
This is a very beautiful area, and these types of breaks are becoming more and more popular. I know I've just had one myself at Longleat, where I stayed in a pod for about 4 days, and very relaxing it was. I believe this is quite a difficult application, but again, having gone through the 18 months that we have, people do need a break, and people do need to come away to enjoy our countryside. I mean, this possibly is one of our core key industries, and the economic value is important. I do stress, Chair, that as I've seen once before on a planning application some years ago I dealt with in Weymouth and Portland, there should be some sort of liaison between the local parish council and this site owners. I make that as part of the recommendation that I know it's not in planning terms, it couldn't be pushed, but I do suggest that there is some sort of liaison between the local parish council so we can iron out areas of concern that are going to crop up, and that they will do. And I fully agree very much with some of the issues that we do in Osmington itself. The roads are very narrow and very tight, and so I think it's a difficult one to call this. It's like all decision making is lighter and darker shades of grey, but on balance, I'll move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I mean, you've got Councillor Nick Ireland.
Okay, Nick.
Instead of sending you the name, do you want me to do the roll call when it comes to it?
Yeah, you do the roll call. We'll listen to Nick. You have a question.
Well, it's not a question. I'm just contributing to the debate.
Okay.
So following on from the technical questions and echoing the people who came after me, I'm really concerned that there is no actual checking that goes on to any of these parks, regardless. I'm going to follow this up later with probably Anna Lee. I know she's on the call, but to actually get a list of how often our officers actually go out and check these things, because if you don't check them, they're essentially unenforceable. I can't see how a resident, for example, down in Osmington Mills could request an enforcement case to be raised, because how would they know unless you wander around the site, clocking the registration numbers, etc. of cars? There's no way for residents to know that if somebody's there for using it as their main residence, and if there's no definition of what is acceptable, what is not a holiday, is as Councillor Bowell and Councillor Clayton have referred to, it's woolly, isn't it? It's nebulous. I think that was the word it was used. So I have grave concerns about that. It doesn't matter that other people already have these conditions to meet. We're looking at this application in front of us today. It does concern me that we haven't been able to answer the question that these places had restrictions put in place, and yet we can't actually in any way actually say what exactly they were. You know, if you were going to guess, you would imagine they were to protect either the environment or the immunity of residents. That would be my obvious suggestion. I have no idea if that's true. So it does worry me that we're removing these, and most Osmington Mills is mostly not holiday homes, it's mostly residents, as opposed to Osmington Village, which is 50% holiday homes. So that I have grave concerns, to be honest, about throwing these things away without understanding why they exist. And I would also like to point out, if you open it for another 2 months, off the top of my head, it's something like, it's not quite 20%, but you're raising the carbon footprint by something near 20%. People are heating properties, people are driving several hundred miles, probably at least. So, it has the climate impact, which isn't mentioned at all. And it does, because otherwise they'd be closed and they wouldn't be heated. So the report doesn't mention any climate implications at all, which, this council should be doing so, and it actually we're supposed to. Just like to point that out as well. Okay, I'm not going to say anymore.
Okay, so thank you, Nick. In the applicant's submission, he did say actually that what they're trying to do is offer facilities to people during the February half term, which I think is a good thing to do, and to say that that this doesn't meet ecological ideals, etc., etc. I really do think that the opportunity that it will offer to people of the country, really, because as has always been said, they will be travelling from elsewhere, is one not to be missed. And I don't know. Moving on. Any more questions?
None have come forward, Chairman. I don't know if anybody's looking at putting a proposal forward.
Okay. Do I have a proposer? I shall propose the as per the recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
Paul Kimber.
Paul Kimber, thank you, Paul. Okay, Louis, will you do the roll call, please?
Yes.
Ask some members for or against. Yeah.
For or against or abstain, I will start with Councillor Dave Bowell.
I'm actually against the proposal.
Against. Councillor Jean Dunseith. Councillor Dunseith.
Yes, no.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'm here. It is a difficult one. I do have concerns about the it being used for full time and everything.
Jean, can I just remind you we are actually taking the vote?
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay.
So can you give us a yes or a yes
or a no? Right. Okay. I will vote for this.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Chairman.
Louis?
Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
Yeah, on balance against.
Councillor Nick Harland.
I'm against, Chairman.
Councillor Louis O'Leary, I'm against. Councillor Paul Kimber, just for clarity, Paul.
For, and as I mentioned, a part of my for is that there should be a liaison with the parish council and the site owners.
Councillor Bill Pipe, just for clarity.
I'm for.
Councillor Sarah Williams
Against.
and Councillor Kate Weller.
Against.
I believe that's everybody, Chairman.
Okay. Democratic Services. I think it's Denise. Could you do me the totals, please?
Yes, Chairman. I've recorded 3 members are for the recommendation and 6 against. No abstentions.
To date, Councillor Shortell go down as an abstention.
He didn't take part, so he's not allowed to vote either way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I now ask Anna Lee to make the formal decision on this item. Anna.
You need a reason.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Yes, as Bob has mentioned, we do need a reason for refusal.
Okay. Well, I see no reason for refusal, so where do we go from here?
Councillor Ireland wishes to speak, Chairman.
Councillor Ireland?
If you want a reason, the last thing I mentioned, the fact that there's no climate implications and it will raise the carbon footprint of a site, which is against our council policy.
Would that be a valid reason, Anna?
If Councillor Weller has an RTS, if not, Councillor Bowell wish to make a comment, then you need to put an RTS.
Okay, Councillor Weller, please.
Thank you. Yes, I think our reasons are that we don't believe that this is sustainable. We haven't had an impact report on the climate emergency, the effects upon climate emergency, and amenity value of this to the overall community. So I think it is, one might say these are nebulous things, but we do need much clearer impact reports on climate and amenity, overall well-being and sustainability.
Okay. Would our legal representative like to make any comment on the reasons given for refusal?
Chairman, I think it's probably more appropriate for planning colleagues to comment on those reasons.
I was just asking you in case you had something salient. Okay.
Chair, sorry, it's Anne here. I think we just need to be clear for members about exactly what impact this has in terms of climate emergency, given that the unit's already there, and what relevant policy in the local plan or the MPPF they consider it falls foul of. Because we need a policy reason for a refusal, if that was the reason that members were looking for. What I would obviously say here is that the units are already there. Yes. You know, there's no climate or sustainable impact in terms of construction, as Bob has already explained. And, you know, the additional use for 2 months of the year, I think we just need to think carefully about what impact that actually has in the grand scheme of things when we have very similar sites elsewhere, which, you know, is a material consideration, Chair.
Okay, thank
Chairman, Councillor Dave Bowell wishes to speak, followed by Councillor Weller.
David?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm slightly confused here because I've been on other planning committee meetings, obviously, and when we've come to a decision that we weren't in favour of an application, then the planning officers helped us out with reasons why we could actually go down that route. So I think that's why there's a dead silence, because everyone's thinking, well, who's going to help us here? I mean, obviously we're minded that personally that I don't like the sustainability of it and the effects on the residential amenity for a start for an extra 2 months. Whether that's going to be as bad as I fear, I don't really know. But you know, my thoughts are I'm against the application, and normally I would hope that Bob would put his hand up and say, in that case, if you are against it, then these are the reasons you could use. And I feel that's what's happened before. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, but in a
Yeah,
mind,
Chairman, we look for members to give us some key steers in terms of material planning considerations that are going to be relevant and defendable, potentially at appeal, if we're going to refuse an application. And ideally, we'd hope members would cite a policy to help us, assemble something.
Yeah, I understand that, Chair. Okay, fair enough.
Let's not all talk over each other.
Councillor Weller, Chairman.
Does anybody have an RTS? Councillor Weller.
Thank you again. Yes, I think actually I absolutely agree with what Councillor Bowell has just said. We are looking to you to find a policy that if there is no policy for what we're saying, then clearly you must tell us that, but I don't think that that's the case in this instance. We are concerned that the increased use is not sustainable. We are concerned, we're very well aware that the buildings are already there, so clearly there's no climate impact in building them. However, the impact upon our carbon footprint of these buildings being used at the coldest part of the year is probably significant. I know these lodges are extraordinarily well equipped and luxurious these days, but they will require heating in January and February, and that will have an impact both in the provision, however they're heated, and the emissions that they then make. The impact upon wildlife at that time will be significant. The light pollution at that time will be much more significant than during summer months. So in our approved climate emergency aspirations, this certainly, if we approve this, it will have an impact upon that. I find it hard to believe that we can't find a policy that those points don't fulfill. But there is no way in the world I am well enough versed in planning law to be able to quote those policies. I do know that we do have councillors and members who can do that. It's not my skill.
Okay, thank you, Kate.
Councillor Kelvin Clayton wishes put an RTS in, Chairman.
Thank you. Kelvin?
Yeah, I don't know whether this helps, but do I assume that there has to be a material condition for the planning officer to put in a condition? And if we're not satisfied that that condition can be monitored or met, then surely the answer is to go back to that material condition that gave rise to the condition, if that makes any logical sense.
Chair, sorry, it's Anne here, just to come back on what Councillor Bowell says. We as officers are happy that the conditions that Mr Burden has recommended can be monitored and enforced. They are standard conditions that are used nationally throughout the country and can be enforced. It is more just a question in terms of the enforcement team taking the necessary actions to monitor and enforce against them, which is something that we can obviously take up with Anna Lee after this meeting anyway, as inferred by Councillor Ireland earlier. So officers are in no doubt with regards to the enforceability and preciseness of those conditions, and we're happy that they meet the tests for conditions.
Okay, and could I ask, Anne, members have made what do they call it? A mindful decision, is it? A minded decision to refuse the application. If I was to ask Anna Lee to make the formal decision on this item, she isn't, of course, obliged to follow the minded decision already made by members, is she? If there is no reason to refuse.
Vice Chairman, would I be able to speak there?
Anna, yes, please.
Thank you. I think what would be the best course of action if it's amenable to yourself is if we had a short adjournment for officers to draft reasons for refusal on the basis of what we've heard from committee members. That could then come back to the committee to check that committee are content with those reasons for refusal, and at that after that process has happened, that would be the point for me to confirm the delegated decision. I don't know if that helps.
Chair, Councillor Dave Bowell just put a RDS in.
Okay, bearing in mind what Anna-Lee has said, Dave, all yours.
Yes, Chair. In fact, it's exactly in relation to what Anna has just said. I'm getting a bit nervous about this one. I don't have a problem if the decision is that the committee decision is not viewed favourably by Anna. She's in a position to make the correct decision, hopefully, bearing in mind all the evidence and the minded to decision of the committee. But I do see that that does not necessarily shut the door on this being approved. Thank you.
Okay. On at this juncture, then I will adjourn the meeting. If members could turn off their cameras and microphones. Denise, would you be able to inform me, please, when officers are ready to rejoin the meeting?
Chair, if you could give us.
I think it might be easier, Chairman, to set a time frame of 10 minutes, and then
Chair,
okay, so
if that's not sufficient time, we can adjourn for a further 5 minutes.
Right, let me say now then that we will adjourn until 11.
Contact me, Anne. You phone me, Anne.
We will adjourn until 11:30. The members okay with that? That's my proposal. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that, Bill.
Chairman, I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favour? Lots of yeses?
Yes.
Right, resume at 11:30 on the same site, Denise?
Yes, members can just turn off their videos. They don't have to leave the meeting. They can just turn off their videos and microphones.
And microphones, yeah. Okay. Okay, I will see members and officers back at 11:30. Thank you. Morning, Louis.
Right, Chairman.
Very well, thank you.
Good.
We're still being recorded, by the way.
And I wasn't going to mention anything bad.
I see the numbers jump to 19. They're back down to 11 now.
Hmm. I think is it Councillor Arnold's leaving at 12 o'clock? I believe.
Is he? He hasn't mentioned.
I think David mentioned it at the beginning of the meeting, I believe.
Okay.
Or it might have been another councillor.
No, it's me. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
going to Tricuro ESG at 12 o'clock, so I have to give my apologies at that point, I'm afraid, because I need to be there as well. So hopefully this one will be sorted by then.
Sorry, I think we're live at the moment. Are we, George?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Anna, what would you like to say?
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Sorry, can I just confirm the meeting has reconvened?
Right, I shall now reconvene the meeting. The meeting has now reconvened at 11:30 precisely.
Thank you. I was hoping to make a suggestion in regard to process. So officers have drafted a reason for refusal, which I believe Anne will be able to read out. It's our view that for clarity, it would then be appropriate for another committee vote to reach the minded to resolution in regards to that reason for refusal. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Anne, if you're ready, are we all back in? Louis, can you do me a roll call, please, to see what members have?
Yes, I can. Councillor Dave Bowell.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
I'm here.
Councillor Jean Dunseith.
I'm here.
Councillor Nick Ireland.
Present.
Councillor Bill Pipe, present. Councillor O'Leary, present. Councillor Paul Kimber.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Sarah Williams.
Yes, I'm here.
And Councillor Kate Weller.
Yes.
That's everybody, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, members. If you could all mute your microphones, please, and do the video thing. I'll call on Anne.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry?
Thank you, Chair. I was going to say I'm ready to read.
Yeah. Could you
two reasons for refusal.
Okay.
The first being the extended use of the holiday accommodation for an additional 2 months of the year would not represent sustainable development, as it would increase the carbon footprint of the development with no evidence having been submitted to indicate to the contrary. The carbon footprint would increase as a result of additional heating, lighting and vehicle movements, particularly as additional months of use would be during the winter. The proposed development is therefore considered to be contrary to policy INT1 of the West Dorset, Weymouth and Portland local plan. A second reason for refusal would also be required in accordance with recommendation B that was made to the committee, because we don't have a completed legal agreement at this time to mitigate for the impacts on the heathland if the permission was to be approved. So the second reason for refusal would read, in the absence of a satisfactory completed legal agreement, there would be no mechanism to ensure payment of the required ecological contribution, £1,911.30, in order to satisfactorily mitigate for the impacts of the development on the European protected heathlands. In these circumstances, the scheme would be contrary to the Dorset Heathlands Planning Framework 2020 to 2025, Policy EMV2 of the West Dorset, Weymouth and Portland Local Plan 2015, and the MPPF 2019. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, that we now have two valid reasons, two valid policy reasons to refuse the application. It's now my advice that I take a further vote on the granting or not of the application concerning Osmington Mills holidays. So, Councillor O'Leary. Yes.
Chairman, is there a proposer and a seconder for refusal of the application?
I beg your pardon, Denise. Do I have a proposer, please?
I'll propose that.
Councillor O'Leary, and a seconder, please.
I'll second that. It's Councillor Ireland.
Councillor Ireland seconding. Okay, Louis, fire away with the
Yep.
roll call, please.
Councillor Dave Bowell.
Sorry, this may sound a strange question, but I'm not 100% sure what we're voting for here.
We're voting on the reason given for refusal. Whether we're happy to accept that reason.
I'm happy to accept that reason. They've clarified it, but that wasn't put to us clearly before. I believe. I do apologise, but that's my opinion. Yes, so I'm okay with that.
Okay, these are just for clarity for members. These are the two reasons that Anne has just read out. Reason one was an extended use, not sustainable, carbon footprint, etc. INT1, Weymouth and Portland local plan. And the second reason was no legal agreement on the contribution, which is embodied in EMB2 of the Weymouth and Portland local plan. So are members now fully aware of the two reasons why, what they are voting on?
The proposal is to refuse the application for the reasons that you've just outlined, Chairman. That's what the vote is being taken on.
Yes, I fully understand that. Thank you, Denise. Do other members, any member not understand what they're voting on? Please show. Right. Louis, you have Dave Bowell, you've done.
Yes, Dave Bowell. Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
I support the reasons for refusal.
Councillor Jean Dunseith.
I'm abstaining.
Councillor Nick Ireland for clarity.
I support the refusal.
I support refusal. Councillor Paul Kimber.
Yeah, supporting the refusal.
Councillor Bill Pipe.
Abstain.
Councillor Sarah Williams.
For refusal. For refusal, excuse me.
And Councillor Kate Weller.
For refusal.
That's everybody, Chairman. Thank you, Louis.
Sorry, Chairman. It's Denise. I didn't take Councillor O'Leary's vote on that.
Yes, sorry, I spoke after Councillor. Yeah, I spoke after Councillor Ireland.
I did hear that myself.
It may have been a bit confusing because I said exactly the same as he did.
Okay, so that's for the refusal, and I didn't hear Councillor Bowell's vote. I didn't hear.
That was for refusal.
Thank you.
Confirming that.
Which in my edition makes 7 for refusal, none in support, none against the refusal, and 2 abstentions. Could you confirm that, Denise, please?
Yes, that's correct, Chairman.
Okay, so the minded decision by members is for refusal. That now goes to Anna Lee to make the formal decision on this item. Anna Lee, please.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. I would like to confirm that I have heard the officer presentation, the representations and the debate. I would like to acknowledge that the officer recommendation here was for approval and officers have set out their reasons for that. However, I also acknowledge this is a complex or difficult decision to reach, and I will respect the minded to resolution of the committee. This means that the application will be refused for the reasons that have been set out and have just been voted on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. That concludes item 4A on the agenda at this point. I shall retire from my brief stint as chairman and hand back over to beg your pardon, to the real chairman, Councillor David Shortell.
Thank you, Councillor Pipe.
Thank Bob.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pipe. I do appreciate all the work that went into that, and I understand exactly what the decision has been. Okay. Members, we'll now take item 4B on the agenda. That is WDD 19001641, 7 St Andrews Road, Bridport, DT6 3BG. This first of two applications is for the listed building consent, and it's for the internal and external alteration to include formation of stepped access from street to front floor, fit iron railings on existing stone wall, and relocated gas boiler to attic space, and move flue from back wall to rear roof. And now I invite Stephen Banks, the case officer, to introduce this item. Good morning, Steve, and over to you.
Good morning, thank you. I'll just get the computer ready. Right, can everyone see that nice and clearly?
Yes, we can, Steve. Well done.
Great. As previously read by the chair, the first of the two applications for the same site relates to a listed building consent. This presentation also covers the application for planning permission, and that effectively doesn't relate to the relocation of the boiler and the flue, which only require listed building consent, not planning permission. And the site can be seen here on the northern side of the road, mid terrace. This slide shows the site with the satellite view again in the same position on the north side of the road. And this slide shows the existing elevations. Of note is the handrail on the bottom right hand corner, which it's proposed to remove, and the steps on the southeast elevation, of which also it's proposed to remove and replace. And this slide shows the existing floor plans. And this slide shows the proposed elevations. On the northwest elevation, the flue in the roof can be seen at the very, or just before the ridge, just finishing before the ridge of the roof. The southeast elevation shows the proposed steps and the proposed railings, and the two side elevations also show the proposed railings. And the next slide shows the proposed or floor plan, sorry, for the loft where the boiler would go, where it's identified. And this is also the proposed floor plans, which do show where the railings are proposed and the steps. This photo shows the existing steps at the site, of which is proposed to replace. And this photo shows the property from the opposite side of the road. And this photo shows the property again. And this photograph is a historic photograph of the property, and of note are the railings that were there historically. And the general key issues, or in summary, would you like me to read this out, Chair, or shall I not read it out? I'll read it out. In summary, subject to the imposition of the recommended conditions relating to material details and construction methods for the proposed steps, and the appearance of the proposed railings, the proposed stone steps and railings, by reason of their attractive design and traditional materials, would enhance the appearance of the curtilage of the listed building. The relocation of the boiler and flue would result in an increase in living space, which would make the building more attractive as a dwelling and therefore contribute to ensuring its long-term use. This benefit would outweigh the less than substantial harm that the flue, by reason of its size and positioning, would cause to the appearance of the listed building, and the proposed works, by reason of their nature, would not result in a harmful loss of historic fabric. And the recommendation is that the application should be approved both applications should be approved, subject to conditions including the plans, the work commencing within 3 years of the date of any decision, detailed sections and elevations of the railings being submitted to and approved by the local planning authority, and prior to any steps being installed, details of the stones being submitted to the local planning authority and approved in writing. And also the fifth condition, requiring a construction method statement for the installation of the steps. And that pretty much sums it up, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Stephen.
Thank you.
Okay, right. On this particular application, which of course is the listed building consent application, I ask if there are any questions of a technical nature for the case officer. None? Okay. I now open the debate for members. If anyone wishes to speak, please use the virtual chat facility available to you. Okay. All right. If there's no deliberation and members are content that have heard the entire presentation and debate, I will seek the proposal and take a vote on the first item to make a minded to resolution by roll call.
Chair, I did put in a request to speak, but I seem to have been ignored.
I beg your pardon. Bill, you're on mute, that's why.
Sorry, Councillor Clayton, you haven't been ignored. I spoke to a mute microphone asking the chairman whether he was opening the debate generally, or would he like to take technical questions first? But of course he didn't hear me because I was muted. So therefore you haven't been ignored, and it's not my policy to ignore anybody who puts any request in the chat bar. Chairman, are you opening the debate generally, or would you like technical questions first?
Shall we retract then? Are there any questions of a technical nature for the case officer related to the listed building consent application?
Yes, Chair, mine was a technical question.
Okay. Go ahead, Calvin. Thank you.
Thank you. And apologies to Bill. It wasn't a personal comment. It was just the chair was moving to a vote and I hadn't been heard. It was just out of frustration.
Apology accepted. No offence taken.
In the report, that the phrases historic fabric and visual amenity crop up several times. I was just after, could we have a bit of a definition of what they mean in terms of a listed building consent?
Yeah, I'll just write that down.
And that's back to Stephen.
As far as visual amenity goes, that's generally, if you were talking about the character and appearance of an area. So, for example, with regards to a listed building, this listed building, its appearance, strictly speaking, for the listed building consent, and also for the planning permission, the appearance of the conservation area would be considered. So the visual goodness, you could say. In planning, there's no specific definition for amenity, but the visual amenity basically refers to what it looks like. Any harm to that would make the area look worse. Anything that would improve the area would obviously represent an enhancement. So visual amenity is basically the visual character or visual quality of the area, whether that would be harmed or improved. And historic fabric would be the fabric of the listed building that is of a historic nature, dating from obviously.
So could you just be a bit more specific than that?
On the historic fabric?
Yeah.
So the historic fabric, for example, would be the slate or the tiles on the roof would be part of the historic fabric. The wall material would be part of the historic fabric. So the fabric of the building.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Kelvin. I have Councillor Nick Ireland, who is your question a technical one, Nick?
It's not technical, but I think Kate Weller was before me.
She was. That's why I'm going to go now to Councillor Kate Weller, who does not have a technical question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the officer for this report. I'm always amazingly pleased when officers manage to think imaginatively when they're dealing with listed properties. It's really important that we look after our listed properties, but we make them fit for purpose in today's world, and this, I think, is exactly what this has done. So I'm delighted to see it, and when the time comes, I'm very happy to recommend approval.
Okay, we have this is still on technical questions, but is there any other technical questions?
No further technical questions, Chairman.
Okay, if there's no more, right, okay, I now open the debate to members.
Okay, we have Councillor Nick Ireland.
Anyone wishing to speak?
Councillor Nick Ireland, Chairman.
Yeah, I was ahead of, we rewound a bit of me. So yeah, I was going to propose or second. So if Kate's going to propose, I'm quite happy to second the proposal.
No other questions, Chairman.
No question.
Right. So Nick, are you proposing, Nick?
I think Kate's already suggested she's happy to propose, so I'll second.
Councillor Weller, Chairman, has expressed a desire to propose, and we have a seconder in Councillor Ireland.
Okay, we've got a proposal and a seconder. Right, we'll take first of all the vote on the listed building consent application, which is WDD 19001641, and I will take the vote by roll call. So I'll first of all ask Councillor Dave Bowell if he approves.
I approve, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Jean Dancer.
Approve.
Thank you. Councillor Bill Pipe.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Ireland for clarity.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Kimber.
For.
Councillor Louis O'Leary.
For.
And for clarity, Councillor Kate Weller.
For.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in favour, and that covers the listed building consent. We're now going to take a roll call, unless there is a technical question regarding the general application, which there isn't, in which case they will take a roll call for the acceptance of WDD 20001117. That again is 7 St Andrews Road, Bridport, and this is for the to cover the step access to the street and the fit of iron railings on the existing wall. Do we have a proposal?
I propose, Chairman. Councillor Pipe.
Okay.
I'm happy to second, Chairman. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you. Second. Okay, we've got a proposal and a seconder. I'm now going to take a vote on this particular application as before. Councillor Dave Bowell.
I approve, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
Approve, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jean Dancer.
Approve.
Thank you. For clarity, Councillor Bill Pipe.
For.
Okay. Councillor Nick Ireland.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Kimber.
For.
For clarity, Councillor Louis O'Leary.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Kate Weller.
For.
I am voting in favour for both applications. I think I missed myself off on the first, right? So that was 9. Okay, we now have the completion of the vote, and I've got 9 approval. Does that conform with your records, Anne?
Yes, it does, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. That's lovely. That concludes that particular item. That covers items 4B and C.
Chair, we Just need to move to Anna to make the final decision.
We need to make the minded for.
Yeah.
Chairman.
I can now ask Annalie to make a formal decision on WDD 19001641, which is the listed building consent application.
Thank you, Chair. I confirm that I've heard the presentation and the debate, and I see no reason to differ from the minded to resolution of the committee, so this listed building application will be approved. Thank you.
Can I also ask if you would make a formal decision on WDD 20001117 again St Andrews Road, Bridport, and this is for the general planning application.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Similarly, I am not aware of any reason to differ from the minded to resolution, and this application will be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That concludes items 4B and C on the agenda. We now move to item 4D on the agenda, WP 19007778 FUL, which is the land east of Mercury Road, Weymouth. I need to verify with all members of the committee that they've received the update sheet related to this particular item, and that's for the erect of retail development comprising of 5 units, use classes A1, A3, and A5, with associated car parking and servicing arrangements, landscaping, and groundworks. Can everyone confirm that they've received the update sheet, please?
Yeah.
Confirm, Chairman.
Confirm.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, everyone. I now invite Emma Telford, the case officer, to introduce this item. Good morning, Emma, and over to you.
Morning,
Emma, thank you.
Before you start, Emma, just to let you know, Chairman, that Councillor Ireland has left the meeting.
Thank you. I'll record that. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Can I just check that you can see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. So this application is at the site land east of Mercury Road, Weymouth, and it's for the erection of retail development comprising 5 units, use classes A1, A3 and A5, with associated car parking, servicing arrangements, landscaping and groundworks. You will remember that this application came to committee in March, where a resolution was made to delegate authority to grant. That decision has not yet been issued due to discussions regarding the section 106, and in the meantime amendments have been made, and it's those amendments that you're being asked to consider today. So initially I've just got the aerial photograph to remind you of the location of the site, which is here. You've got the recently built Aldi store here, MediSave offices, Sainsbury's, New Look offices, and the Weymouth ambulance station here as well. And then you've got the boundary with the neighbouring properties of Heatherley Road and St Andrews Avenue. Again, I just wanted to remind members that the site is within it is allocated as a key employment site. And then this was the scheme that came before you in March, which was obviously the terrace of 3 large retail units with a coffee shop drive-through and a restaurant drive-through to the north of the site. And then the next slide shows the current scheme. The key amendments to set out to you are that these revisions have been made to facilitate a phased delivery to allow the units 2 and 3, 7 and 8 to be delivered as soon as possible, and then with unit 4 to come forward when a proposed occupier comes forward. So in terms of the kind of key amendments, before we had a terrace of 3 retail units, and that now has been separated into 2, with units 2 and 3, and then unit 4 as a standalone unit. You've got a reconfiguration of the internal road layout. which also involves Unit 4 would now require delivery vehicles to reverse in to service Unit 4, and obviously vehicles servicing Units 2 and 3 would have access to that turning circle. The employment land remains unchanged, as does the attenuation features. No alterations are proposed to Unit 7, which was the coffee shop with the drive-through, and no alterations are proposed to Unit 8, which is the restaurant unit, again with a drive-through. These were the previously submitted elevations for Units 2, 3 and 4, which obviously included that terrace of 3 retail units. And then the scheme we're considering today shows Units 2 and 3 still adjoining, and then Unit 4 as a separate standalone unit. No alterations have been made to the materials. This slide is just to show you the proposed floor plans, again showing obviously the terrace now separated and this external compound relocated to adjacent to Mercery Road. And then the next slides show the proposed sections. So the top one is the section for Units 2 and 3, showing that relationship with the service yard, and then the back site boundary, and then below it the section for Unit 4. And again, this just shows kind of the shop front design, but again, that hasn't changed since the previous committee. I've just included the same photos as last time. The top one, oh sorry, not the top one, this one's taken from Mercery Road. And you've obviously got the site in the foreground, and then you can see that boundary with the neighbouring properties where my cursor is now. Again, taken from Mercery Road, but just showing a bit more of the site itself. Then these two photographs, the one on the left shows the relationship with the existing development on the other side of Salter Way. And then the photo on the right is again showing that relationship with the boundary with the neighbouring properties. And then just a closer up photo showing that boundary with the neighbouring properties of there. So the key planning matters for this one, as a resolution was made at March committee to delegate authority to grant, the key planning matters are the amendments to the previous scheme. In terms of residential amenity, a noise addendum report was submitted, and environmental health raised no objections subject to the previous conditions. You've got visual amenity of the alterations to the scheme, the visual impact of those, and highway safety. Highways have considered the revised proposals and have set out that they do not present a material harm to the transport network or to highway safety. At this point, I would just like to bring your attention to 2 further reps that were received after my report was completed. These are set out in full on the update sheet, but there was one from a third party in relation to a large amount of signs that were being proposed, and the other from the ambulance service, setting out concerns about the impact of development on the operational activities, in particular the fact that the proposed entrance is opposite the access and egress for the ambulance station, and that traffic management solutions would be needed. I just need to point out that Salter Way is a private road, but the applicant has responded to say that they'll look to install parking restrictions on Salter Way. In terms of the recommendation, it's for the committee would be minded to delegate authority to the head of planning to grant, subject to consultation with the Secretary of State, and the completion of a legal agreement to secure a sustainable transport contribution, and then the following conditions as set out in the officer's reports and as amended and updated on that update sheet. Just to highlight some of the main changes to the conditions. We
we've now got a further condition at 11, which looks to further restrict the deliveries, the hours of deliveries to that unit 4, which is the standalone units. And then I also highlight condition 20, which is to provide a phased approach to the car parking. So as the units come forward, so does the car parking for that unit. And then there is some new conditions added, which is for finished floor levels to be submitted, which is condition 30. For details of solar panels to be erected to be submitted, which is condition 32. And then condition 31 is to ensure that units 2 and 3 are completed before unit 4 goes above damp proof course level. But that's everything from me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Emma. Very good report. I now invite Jenny Williams, our Administrative Assistant, to read the written statements submitted to Democratic Services. Good morning, Jenny, and over to you.
Well, Jenny, you're on mute. Oh, Councillor Shortell, I think Jenny's got a problem and seems to have left the meeting.
Okay.
I wonder whether Denise might be able to read out the written statements in Jenny's absence.
Are you able to, Denise?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Okay, go ahead, Denise.
Just one moment. Okay.
Sorry, I do apologise. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. Would you like me to start again, Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Craig Oakes, President, Weymouth and Portland Chamber of Commerce, support. The Executive Board of the Weymouth and Portland Chamber of Commerce wishes to advise that, further to the recent revision of plans for the above referenced application, we continue to support the overall development. We feel the proposed change to the retail unit makes no real difference to the original planning application. As a representative body of around 100 businesses in Weymouth and Portland, we know business is eager to see progress and development to boost the economy of the town. We believe this scheme will bring numerous benefits to Weymouth, including draw shoppers into Weymouth who will in turn venture into the town and surrounding areas in order to make a day out of it. There is a great opportunity to rethink what Weymouth can really offer as a visitor attraction in and out of season. We have a great town and harbour that could draw in large investment and in turn visitors. Deliver year-round jobs, which is increasingly important in the current climate. Deliver the second main part of a circa £50 million investment. Make a long vacant site productive. Give the entrance to the town greater vitality. Provide a draw for visitors which could be capitalised on to signpost people to the high street beach areas of town to help generate a general uplift. We understand the developers should be willing to provide signage. Regarding the question of use, the board previously discussed and commented on the matter, stating that we feel there appears to be no prospect of the site attracting predominantly B-class occupiers, despite the historic allocation, as evidenced by it being vacant for over 10 years. The Granby Industrial Estate, although outside the Weymouth boundary, has ample space for more industrial style use if it is required. We do hope you will approve this minor revision to a welcome proposed development. Applicant. Thank you for the opportunity to address you regarding our proposed Weymouth Gateway development. London Metric has owned this vacant site since 2017. In our first phase development last year, we delivered the Aldi food store and are working closely with Medisave to help facilitate their expansion. Combined, these represent some 60 permanent jobs. Today, you are presented with a minor variation of the final phase scheme that was approved at committee on the 9th of March 2021. and which will generate another 280 plus permanent year-round jobs. There is just one principal change to the consented scheme: reordering of the main retail terrace units. There are negligible changes to the total floor space and none to the site, car parking numbers, or any other key components of the scheme already approved by the Planning Committee. You may recall that we have agreements in place with Dunelm, Costa Coffee, B&M and McDonald's to operate at the site. We are progressing conversations with prospective operators regarding options for the final unit. As all the units are currently linked in a single terrace, any changes required to secure a final occupier would impact the rest of the site, delaying the opening of all stores until 2023 at the earliest. The proposed minor change simply relocates the vacant site to the opposite end of the terrace. This would allow us to continue negotiations with potential tenants whilst progressing development of the pre-let units this summer, which in turn would enable all committed occupiers to start trading next year. Importantly, you may be aware of the current labour and materials shortages in the construction industry. We have proactively progressed discussions and orders with a South Coast-based contractor and suppliers, which will give us the confidence we can fulfil this stated delivery timetable. We are very keen to deliver on our promise to provide new local employment opportunities. As well as 280 year-round jobs, the scheme will generate some 50 construction jobs and 50 spin-off jobs, a 4.76 million per year boost to the GVA, and circa 6 million in business rates over a 10-year period. There is no doubt locals back this scheme. 88% of 500 plus respondents to our online exhibition voted in favour, as did Weymouth and Portland Chamber of Commerce, the South Dorset Business Advisory Panel and Weymouth Bid Board, with whom we're discussing ways to promote Weymouth Town Centre from our site. We hope you conclude, as your planning officers have, that the change proposed is minor, beneficial and sensible, and you approve this planning application so that we may proceed in haste. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Jenny. Right. Are there any points to be raised by Highways? I invite Colin Graham, the Highways engineer, to make any comments he wishes to make.
Sorry, Chair.
Colin, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Chair, I do apologise. I thought I'd turn mute off. And the comment about the turning that was made in the presentation, that's pretty much unchanged because the turning area still remains at the end of the units, which lorries coming into this development and getting to the rear to service them, they can still access that. They would have to come around the corner behind the first unit and then reverse back to the unit that's been shifted to the far east end. When they leave, they can either draw forwards, and I see no reason they can't just exit by doing a right turn, or if that was awkward for any reason, they could go down to the turning head that's established at the far west side of the development. We've heard about the parking provision, and the comments from the ambulance station were to do with parking. They requested some alterations in mitigation, and I put this to the developer, and they are willing to meet that, subject to the landowner's consent. I believe the landowner for Suiterway is a New Look. Indeed, when I went out there again to do a final check, there's a signage at the end, the east end of Suiterway, that says that area is for parking for New Look staff. So that sort of backs up that the site is owned by a New Look. So it's a private matter, and I'm sure the applicants, they have said in writing they would be willing to work to provide this mitigation subject to landowners' approval. So that concludes that. Oh, sorry, in Suiterway is over 7.3 metres wide. There was some parking out there the other day. It's mainly large vans and vans as opposed to lorries, and a couple of like camper vans. Some of them seem to have curtains closed. I think people are taking the opportunity to sleep there. That's going to be down to New Look to control that. New Look's own staff who used to park on Suter Way, I note that their car park during these current times, their car park is not fully occupied. There must be a lot of people remote working like there is everywhere. So even with the vans parked there, there's 5 metres clear of carriageway, which in Manufacture streets, you only need 4.8 metres for a lorry to pass a car. So an ambulance is 2.2 metres wide, so that's narrower. The opposing accesses, they're very clear to one another. And if an ambulance is in a hurry, it would put blues and twos on. That would be clear to all drivers. And then it'd be able to get out onto Mercery Road, and it can access from there either north or southwards. So I don't see much change, to be honest. The ambulance people did say if their requirements, the mitigation was met, they didn't actually object to the proposal. So we've gone a long way to ensuring that mitigation would be provided. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Colin. That's very kind. I'll now call on Emma Telfer to respond with any salient points you may wish to clarify regarding the written statements or Highways comments.
I have no further points. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Matt. Right, members of the committee, are there any questions of a technical nature for the case officer or Highways?
Councillor Kate Weller, Chairman, followed by Councillor Paul Kimber.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
Thank you. This is pseudo-technical, I suppose. I'm a couple of things that are concerning me. And I hope that Colin can put my mind at rest. The requests from the ambulance service, Colin has said, well, it will be up for discussion and with the landowners who are New Look and the developers, and I'm sure that they can come to a suitable arrangement, but I'd like us to receive some confirmation that that is the case, whether it's a yellow box system or whether it's LED lights or whatever. I'd quite like, it won't stop me going ahead with this because I think it's a good plan, but I do want us to have something a little bit firmer on what's going to happen there, because it is a busy ambulance station. And we do need to know that that's going to be fine. And my other thing, again, is a matter of disquiet more than anything else, and that's with the new units, the 2 and then the 1, and I maybe didn't quite understand what Colin was saying and what the officer was saying, but lorries coming into that 4th unit when it's eventually built will reverse down that side. That means that those, absolutely rightly, the reversing signal, the sort of the bleeping noise and the voice saying vehicle reversing will be on. And again, quite rightly, they're quite loud, and that's exactly where people are living there. I note that we've said that deliveries won't happen after 8 o'clock at night. I think we need to be really, really strict on that, because if I've just put a child down to sleep at 8:30 and there is suddenly a lot of bleeping and noise going on, I wouldn't be best pleased, and I don't imagine those residents there would be either. So I just want these conditions really sharp, and for us to make sure that we do enforce them there as and when that starts, the operations start occurring, and just some confirmation on what mitigation we're doing for the ambulance station, so that they are very happy that their operations aren't impacted in any way. Those are my only points. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Keller. I think the first question was directed to you, Colin, the highway engineer. and then I'll go on to Emma to respond to the other question. Colin.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, just to elaborate on what I said already about the ambulance, the South West Ambulance Service had requested requested controls on the parking. It is a private road. That would be an arrangement with the landowner, who I believe is New Look. I wouldn't normally get involved with private roads. And the applicant has said he would do whatever the landowner allows them to do and would fund it. So that assurance has been given in writing. I have copied that through to the planning case officer. So it's on file. And I say, even with the parking that occurs down there, there is sufficient room for two vehicles to pass one another. Yeah, it's for car and a lorry. Now we're talking about a car and an ambulance. So yeah, I feel confident it would be addressed, and much I can say at this point, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. I'll now hand back to Emma to answer the second question regarding Unit 4.
Yeah, so just in terms of the noises from reversing lorries, environmental health have been consulted as part of the application and raised no objections subject to conditions. Like mentioned, we have the condition further restricting the delivery hours for Unit 4, and we also have a condition for a service yard noise management plan to be agreed, and that is for all of those units. So we have got that condition as well.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Emma. I hand back to Councillor Weller. Does that answer both of your questions?
Yes, thank you very much. But I would like us to be kept informed on those.
Okay, duly noted. I now had a technical question for from Councillor Paul Kimber.
You do indeed, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sure we all welcome the potential in jobs. I'd like to ask two questions, Chair. First of all, I was on the Wainston Portland Borough Council Planning Committee when we did the Aldi application. And that application was, the committee then were very strong in charging points for cars. So if I could be assured of that, I couldn't see it on the list of things that we would do, if that could be that could be checked on. And the other thing I wanted to say, and Kate alluded to the residents and noise, and I just wanted to check that the space between the houses, Mercury Road, and the units, there's a terrace of trees, and I just wonder if we can, part of the development, we can actually enhance that so it gives those residents that they haven't got to see shops at the bottom of their garden when they go into their gardens. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you, Councillor Gamber. I'm going to go hand back to Emma to answer the questions regarding the charging points and the space next to the trees.
Yeah, so just to clarify on the charging points, condition 22 requires the provision of 32 electric car charging parking spaces. And then there is also a condition for a landscaping scheme, but that landscaping does include additional planting on that boundary between the site and those neighbouring properties.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Paul Kimber, does that answer both your questions?
I'm very reassured by that. Just if I can ask a bit further, dig a bit deeper on the trees, the screening. I know in some areas that there is usually a very high wooden fence that has a great effect on recoiling a lot of noise. Will that be something like that be in as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kimber. I'm going to ask that question back to Emma as well. So over to you, Emma.
Yeah, if I can just highlight condition 13, which is for details of a noise barrier, an acoustic fence to be agreed, and then to be erected on the site.
Okay, thank you, Emma. Does that satisfy your question, Councillor Kimber?
Absolutely, Chair.
Okay. Is there any other questions of a technical nature for the case of or highways?
I have two members waiting, Chairman, but I believe they are non-technical questions.
Okay. Right. Okay. I now open the debate to members. So who have we got to speak first, Bill?
First of all, Chairman, we've got Councillor Louis O'Leary, closely followed by Councillor Kate Weller.
Okay. Councillor Louis O'Leary, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say it's a really important development. It's a really good development for Weymouth. I'm happy with the plan as it is, and I would like to propose it for approval.
I've got you down as the proposer. Thank you very much indeed. You don't wish to add to your proposition? No? Okay, all right. No. I'll go to Councillor Kate Weller then. You are next to speak.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm happy to second Councillor O'Leary in a moment, but I just want to make a general comment, and it's really sort of going back to technical in some ways, and it's to planners in general. I think it's great that we're including electric charging units in pretty much every development that now comes up. Can I point out to them, we need to start amplifying that a little bit and saying that we need rapid charging units. I say this because I was on a longish journey recently. As you know, I drive an electric car. I was on a longish journey recently, stopped at a garden centre, not in Dorset, who very kindly have a dozen charging points within their car park, all free, but they were all simple charging units, and after an hour I found I'd charged 5 miles on my battery, which wasn't terribly useful. A little later I stopped elsewhere, and in half an hour I got 100 miles. So I think we need now to be saying we want, I don't think economically they make very much difference, but we do need to be saying rapid chargers, because 5 miles charge is really not sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, I'm sure that the officers will take your comments on board. I'm sure that they have actually considered that, and they will include that in their specifications for a charging point. Do we have any other speakers, Bill?
Yes, indeed, Chairman. Councillor Calvin Clayton, closely followed by Councillor Paul Kimber.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just as a point of clarity on this, we voted on this back in March. Are we now voting on the whole application or just the amendment?
We're voting on the whole application.
Okay.
FUL.
FULL.
Well, I think.
Councillor Kimber, Chairman.
Yeah, that answers your question. Okay, is there any other question?
Councillor Kimber, Chairman.
Oh yes, of course. I've got Councillor Kimber down. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm sure myself and all the committee actually really welcome the jobs coming into Weymouth. This is at Portland and our area. This is an absolutely really good news, and I can say as a former trade union official, I've spent so many times working with people that have lost their jobs, and so I think this is a great news. Thank you very much. Just a general point, I'll be supporting.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kimber. Anyone else wishing to speak, Bill?
None at all, Chairman. So you have a proposer and a seconder.
Okay, if there's no more deliberation and members are content that they have heard the entire presentation and debate, I've got a proposer and a seconder already declared. So to make a minded to resolution, I will now do a vote by roll call.
Councillor, sorry, Chairman, it's Anne. Just to clarify, the minded to approve, is that with the additional condition and the amended wording for one of the reasons for the conditions as per the update sheet, please?
Thank you for that, Councillor. I'll now go back to the proposer, which was Councillor Louis O'Leary. Are you happy with those, with the changes condition in your proposal?
I am, Chairman.
And likewise, Councillor Kate Weller, are you happy to second those changes to the condition?
Yes, Chairman.
Okay, I've clarified that, Anna, so that's fine. All right, we'll take it by vote by roll call. Councillor Dave Bowell.
I approve, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kelvin Clayton.
Yeah, approved, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jean Dunseth.
Approved, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Bill Pike.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Kimber.
For, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Louis O'Leary for clarity.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Kate Weller for clarity.
For.
And I'm in favour as well. Sorry. Councillor Sarah Williams.
For, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And I'm in favour as well. I make that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Does that agree with your records, Anne? 9 in favour.
Yes, it does, Chair. So if you're able to pass now to Anna for the final decision, please.
I certainly will. I now ask Anna Lee to make the formal decisions on this particular item.
Thank you, Chair, and I confirm that this application will be determined in line with the minded to resolution of the committee, which is also in line with the officer recommendation. This means the application will be approved, subject to consultation with the Secretary of State and also subject to the Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, that concludes item 4 on the agenda. That's the planning applications. We now go on to item 5 on the agenda, and that's appeals decisions. Members, I direct your attention to noticed appeals and appeal decisions, particularly with regards to material considerations and how that will impact on future deliberations. And I now invite Anne Collins, the Area Manager for Planning, to present this item.
Thank you, Chair. I was really just going to highlight to members' attention appeal decision number 1 at paragraph 2 onwards. Members will recall the application for Homestead Barn Farm, Botherhampton, came to committee in August 2020, and a number of enforcement reports have been presented to committee since then. So this is probably of interest to members. The original officer recommendation was for approval. Members overturned that and refused the application for 2 reasons. It went to appeal. It was the subject of a public inquiry held in May, and we recently received a decision. As members will see, the appeal has been allowed. So the scheme with the amendments to the height of those buildings has been granted. There was also an application for costs, which the council successfully defended, and there was no awards of costs against the council, but the appeal was allowed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Anne. Very interesting to see that update and that particular item concluded. We'll now take item 6 on the agenda, and that's urgent items. And I have no prior notification of any items of business which is considered to be urgent pursuant to section 100B 4B of the Local Government Act 1972. That is all the items on the agenda. So I therefore bring this.
You have a request to speak.
I was about to get there. You have Councillor Bowell, Chairman, who would like to speak.
Okay, Councillor Bowell, would you like to say something there?
Yes, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. I just want to go back to these to the reports that I've read through them, sadly, because I was intrigued and trying to get some information from them. Because it does say that the reports are to inform members of notified appeals and decisions to take into account as a material consideration in the planning committee's future decisions. So can I ask what we as committee members are supposed to take from these long and complicated reports? I personally would like some kind of a summary from the planning office referring to particular policies or elements of judgment that we can learn from. For example, I mean, in the inspector's report on the Homestead Farm, it actually says, one of the inspector's comments says, the inspector noted that there was no dispute that the different elements of the building have been constructed with each element higher than indicated. And I'd like to highlight the fact that it took years of campaigning and a lot of money from people in Bothenhampton to engage an independent surveyor, and then finally a separate surveyor engaged by the council, before the applicant finally admitted that what many had insisted all along, the heights were not the same as those allegedly approved. So what can we learn from this? If the purpose of these reports are to teach us and give us information to make future decisions, then I'd like to know what we should take from these reports. Or should we just look at them and ignore them?
Can I ask Anna to actually make any comments if she wishes to on that statement?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I think I would say that these reports are presented for information for the committee members. We have attempted to summarise the inspector's report within our report to the committee, and I note that the point specifically that Councillor Bowell raised is within the officer's summary. We are always happy to take feedback, and perhaps it's a discussion outside this meeting in regard to any way we can highlight those points in a better way, but it is really for your information and so that members are aware that these inspectors' decisions have been reached. I don't know if that helps at all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Anna. I think I probably would like, I don't know, is it possible to say that these are the relevant policies, and because of this particular reason they were taken into or not? Because I mean, if we head these up and say that we have to take them into account as material considerations in the planning committee's future decisions. And I, for one, have looked through all of this and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take into account. So is it, perhaps do we need to change the introduction on these, or perhaps treat them with more seriousness?
What I'll do, Councillor Bowell, if I may, is actually get Anna to actually contact you following the meeting to actually go through those points that you've made and perhaps explain it, and we come to perhaps a procedure which will satisfy all concerned. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, David. I look forward to talking to you, Anna.
Thank you.
That's right. Thank you very much indeed. That
not quite the end, Chairman, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Councillor Weller would like to contribute.
Sorry, Chairman. I'm just wondering, in view of what Councillor Bowell said, which I agree with, we might bear that in mind when we're next doing planning training.
Thank you very much indeed. That's a very, very good point, actually, Councillor Weller, and I'm sure that will take them on board, and we'll take that in consideration. I will actually speak to Anna later in order to include that particular element within future training for the committee. Are you okay?
No. Sorry, Kate. Did you want to come back on that?
No. You've heard quite enough from me.
I wouldn't say that ever.
Okay. Are there any other points anyone wishes to raise before I close the meeting?
None whatsoever. Quick.
Okay. All right, Bill. Well, in that case, then I therefore close the meeting at 12:38, and look forward to seeing you in
September.
Well, have a nice holiday, everyone, and I'll look forward to seeing you in September.